I said, well, ground racing's really the only thing I like. And she said, well, what else do you like doing? And I said, well, I like, talking to people about greyhound racing. I like podcasts. And she said, why don't you start your own greyhound podcast? Interview all the people that you know, even if they're friends, like just get them on there and give yourself something to look forward to. And I was like, oh, who's going to want to talk to me? Like, I'm just a bogan from, country New South Wales. Like, I can't match it with these professional people. 400 episodes later, I get people approaching me saying, hey, I'd love to be on, or hey, can you interview such and such? If you're thinking of doing it, just do it. Like, I hesitated so many times. I've gone to hit the delete button on my socials that many times, and thank God I haven't, because I would have regretted it.
Australians or Irish? British?
Oh, I get asked this all the time. How can you compare though when the lure is different? I don't know. Like, yeah. Look, I'm gonna just say the world's most boring answer and say that they're all fast. A day wouldn't go by where I'm not getting tagged or mentioned or sent a video of your crowds going, look at these crowds, why aren't our crowds like this? So we are so envious of you in that aspect. It's not funny, like super jelly.
Welcome to Gone to the Dogs on our very special 100th episode. I can't quite believe I've made it to 100. I've done, I think, pretty much every single one as well for the last 2.5 years. There might have been a couple that I've missed due to holidays or what have you. But I am Danny Jackson, as always, and my co-pilot now is Joe Keneally. How are you doing, Joe?
Too bad, thank you, Danny. Yes, and congratulations. Well done on 100. I think I've got to about 55 maybe with you, around that mark, I think. So yeah, we're a long way to go, but no, very well done. It's you've done an extremely good job. So yeah, fair play to you, and fair play to Joe Andrew as well, of course, who we always mention, who did start this with you as well. So we won't forget about him.
No, we won't. And he's just had some puppies as well. So we're going to have to get Joe back on the podcast because I want to know about his new pups that have just landed on the earth, not on the track yet. Few months, and maybe about 18 months, 2 years to go until we see them on the track. But I think one of his bitches has had one pup and the others had about 5 or 6, I think, Lively, Lauren. So looking forward to hearing all about those. But what we're also looking forward to today is we're going down under with Dimity Maher, who is the Greyhound Girl from Australia. She's got the podcast and has reached 400 episodes, which makes us pale into insignificance, really, here in the UK. But Dimity, thank you so much for joining us, and we are thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much. I've been following you guys for quite a while now, and I just said to you before that I'd love to have you guys down under one day, so I might have to start a GoFundMe or some sort of campaign to get you guys down here, because I just absolutely thrive on greyhound media, so I'm naturally watching you guys 24/7. And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on here and not only obviously talk about greyhound racing in Australia, but talking about all the good stuff that you guys are doing over there as well.
Because we don't know, or people over here in the UK wouldn't know, how you got involved in greyhound racing. So what was the spark for you? Is it kind of a family thing, or did you just rock up at a track one day and go, this is the sport for me?
Oh, my dad pretty much forced me into it. I didn't really have a choice. I grew up probably on about 2 minutes walk from the local track here. Unfortunately, it's not operational anymore, but I grew up there. I'm an only child, so Dad basically said, well, you've got to keep going with it. He's had greyhounds for 50 odd years. My grandfather's had greyhounds, uncles. It's basically in the Maher bloodline. So he said, it's up to you to keep going with it. And, I loved it from the very first second I stepped foot on the track. I had my little notebook writing down the dogs, the colours of the dogs I thought were trialling really good. And I just was obsessed with it from day one. Mum wasn't too keen on me getting involved. She wasn't overly keen on the idea. She didn't think it was the most feminine thing at the time for me to become involved with. But, she's happily involved now. And I mean, there's so many, like yourself, there's so many great women involved in greyhound racing now. I think the sort of the tag of, it's only a male sport is, that's definitely in the past, because there's so many great females out there and so many great females doing well.
Absolutely. What is the local track to you, Dimity? What is the one that is not operational now?
So it's Singleton. Yeah, so it was a beautiful little grass track with, a variety of distances. And look, it attracted some of the best dogs, definitely in the eastern states. Like we had some absolute beauties here that went on to be really good stud dogs and broodies as well. So yeah, unfortunately it was closed down. But my kind of local tracks now are Maitland, which is about a 40-minute drive, and the Gardens in Newcastle. Obviously the Australian version of Newcastle, not your Newcastle over there. It's about 45 minutes drive. So I'm pretty lucky. I'm fairly close to a lot of the tracks around here, so it's good.
And that was the next question. Where are you based for people who don't know? Where do you live?
Yeah, Singleton. So it's the Hunter Valley. So for a reference point, I'm about a 2.5 hour drive northwest of Sydney.
That's what us who don't know Australia want to know. How far you are from the-
I say I go, I'm in Newcastle, and they're like, so why have you got an Australian accent? I said, oh no, sorry, I'm in Australia, Newcastle.
There's so many towns and cities over there that've got the same names as us. So yeah, I'm not surprised people are confused.
I get confused.
I think I heard a story once that someone had booked a flight from Manchester, but it was actually, I think, Manchester in the USA that they'd booked it from rather than the UK. So you just think, come on,
That is where that's where Roy lived, Manchester in America. Yeah, it's about an hour from Boston.
Right,
So yeah,
okay.
the reference points again. So yeah, it was Boston, but yeah, Manchester, about an hour out of Boston. So yeah, that's where Ryan was. Yeah.
Because I think you guys have like a Cardiff and everything like that as well, don't you? Yeah, so we have all that. So no wonder people get confused. I'll have to be careful when I book the train next time that I'm not booking Cardiff, England. That'll be quite expensive.
Might as well, to be fair, because our trains aren't exactly cheap. So you got involved with greyhound racing at quite a young age, I would just imagine. How did you, or when did you decide to become a voice of greyhound racing and start the podcast? Obviously, 400 episodes, but what made you decide to do that?
So back in 2021, I think it was pre kind of the COVID era when it come in. But look, long story short, I've got Crohn's disease and I've had it for about 13 or 14 years now. And I was really sick back in 2021. I had a really bad year health-wise. I had a bad relationship breakdown. I left my partner and moved out. And I'm just like, I have nothing positive in my life. What can I bring some positivity to my life? Because I just really had no motivation to keep going. It got that bad. And I sat down with my therapist and she said, okay, well, let's write down all the things that you like. And obviously, I said, well, ground racing's really the only thing I like. And she said, well, what else do you like doing? And I said, well, I like, talking to people about greyhound racing. I like podcasts. And she said, why don't you start your own greyhound podcast? Interview all the people that you know, even if they're friends, like just get them on there and give yourself something to look forward to. And I was like, oh, who's going to want to talk to me? Like, I'm just a bogan from, country New South Wales. Like, I can't match it with these professional people. And, so I was so lucky. Dan Russ, a really good friend of mine who's an ex-greyhound commentator, he said, yeah, sure, I'll have a chat with you. And he was episode number 1. And I thought, oh, this will fizzle out in about 6 months. People will get sick of it. I'll get sick of it. And here I am 400 episodes later. I get people approaching me saying, hey, I'd love to be on, or hey, can you interview such and such? And then obviously when we have the feature races, I'll, approach people and say, hey, do you want to come on that? Very rarely do I have people say no. It's only people who may be a little shy and just don't, they like to just stay quiet and stay in the background. But 9 times out of 10, people are like, yes, I'd love to come on. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I have tried to turn it into a bit more like of a formal Q&A style thing, but that's just wasn't me. I just sounded ridiculous. And I was like, no, I'm just got to accept the fact that I'm a bogan, that I talk like one, and people like that. They're like, yeah, don't change. We like the way you sound. So yeah, here I am 400 episodes later.
Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's one of those things, isn't it?
Exactly.
We know, or Joe knows, not how to start the podcast, but how to keep it going. And to try and get it off the ground is quite tricky, to try and get the word out there, because I think we're so insular as a sport in general, certainly over here in the UK we are, that I thought everybody knows about everything. Everybody knows the newest podcast or vlog or whatever on YouTube, but they don't actually. And we've done the Gone to the Dogs live shows, and we think that everybody should know, and they don't. So, how have you managed to? How did you start promoting it? Was it just via social media, kind of word of mouth? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I thought to myself, and I did a little bit of research on it, and I actually, I have to give a shout out to someone who I've recently sort of engaged with. He's called, his Instagram's called The Social Sandwich, and that's Edward, and he's like a social media sporting expert. And he's obviously given me some really good tips, but he said basically you need to try and be on social media and all of the social media platforms, especially ones like Facebook, Instagram, etc., bring them all together and then use that in conjunction with my podcast to kind of be like a one-stop shop for people, to promote whatever to do with greyhound racing. And just kind of by accident, especially TikTok, don't ask me how I've got 60 odd thousand followers on TikTok. I don't know. I still don't know. People want advice from me and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I don't even know how I've done it. I'll just put videos up and people just go mad. But anyway, that's that's another story. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought, okay, I'm just going to sign up to everything, post everything up on there, put the podcast up on there, and it's gotten so big. People go, "Oh, do you have someone helping you?" And I'm like, "No, but I think maybe I need to start exploring that because I do everything myself, and it is a lot of work. It's hard work, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it."
We've seen that on TikTok, didn't we? One video of Churchill Sid, and it was over 1 million views when he done it.
1.3 million for one of our stars over here called Churchfield Sid. We just put a race up. It was just a random race. It wasn't even him winning one of the Cat 1s. It was just a random race. And then it was like, what? 1.3 million people have watched this and bookmarked it and saved it. I don't understand TikTok either. No. I have no idea. Joe's the same. We're both of that age where it was like, we're just slightly older than we should be to really understand it.
I literally logged out of TikTok. Oh, this was 6 months ago. Logged back in, and I had like 20,000 extra followers. And I'm like, this can't be right. There's got to be something wrong with their algorithm or something. And then I've got all these people saying, "Oh, what do you do on TikTok?" I said, "Nothing." I said, "I'm posting on TikTok what I post on everything else, but for some reason, people just thrive on it." I don't know. It's great because it's getting greyhound racing out there, so I'll keep doing it. But please don't, anyone ask me for advice on how I've done it because I don't know.
I'll keep you on the call after this then to give me a tutorial. That's fine.
It'll be a very short tutorial.
Obviously, before I started my podcast and you started yours, I can imagine you had a bit of a rudimentary understanding of the sport, politics wise, and all the intricacies of it. How has your vision of the sport changed in the last kind of 4 years that you've been hosting the pod?
I am so impressed with how far we've come in terms of, welfare and track standards and the professionalism that people show now. Not that it never was there, but I think a lot of people just didn't understand, what it took to be a professional trainer and what they had to do and, introducing proper nutrition and, our I'm only speaking for Australia, like I don't know about you guys over there, but our training techniques, treadmills for dogs and walking machines. Like back when I was 8 years old, I would have went, "What? There's going to be treadmills and walking machines for dogs? Are you serious?" Like it's just come leaps and bounds, and all of the therapy that we have, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen change, especially since I get kind of an inside look now that I've made more friends and I'm interacting with more people, and I also work for the New South Wales GBOTA, which run tracks like Wentworth Park, which is New South Wales Metro track. I get to go in the kennel block and all that sort of thing, and just the professionalism of the sport from where it was even 4 years ago, it's just getting better and better. And I think that's one thing that people that kind of maybe a little bit on the fence about whether greyhound racing is good or not, the regulatory side of it, I couldn't honestly see any other industry, especially in Australia, having the standards that our trainers, breeders, etc., have to adhere to, because, you basically can't put a foot wrong. Not that, we want people to do that, but it is such of a high standard and our dogs are so well cared for. It's only going to get better going into the future.
And how does it fall with the government over there? Their thoughts.
So, do you mean in terms of government support?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've seen some really good stuff in Victoria. A lot of their politicians are really behind greyhound racing, which is great. From a New South Wales perspective, politicians like Mark Latham, etc., who are independent politicians, they've been really fantastic, particularly when that proposed ban, when was that? Yeah, I don't even know, it was years ago now, but they were really great in advocating for us. There's still some that are a little bit, you can tell they're kind of on the fence. They don't want to promote greyhound racing on their socials, which is something I'm trying to encourage them to do. And I've actually got some of them, basically to say, they're following my pages now and they share my stuff. And I'm like, yes, like that's what gets me excited. When I see a politician sharing one of my posts, I'm like, yes, poor buggers get hammered for it, but at least they're sharing it. So that's good.
Superb. I mean, it just seems like, with regards to the UK and the Aussie model, obviously we're totally different in how we run anyway. But if you we watch the Australian greyhound racing, that would be the graded action over here, which is just a kind of bread and butter day-to-day stuff, and it just seems incredible. Every race, you've got a commentator for every single race, which we don't have over here at the track. That make it sound like the Derby or the what is it, the Melbourne Million or whatever it is later on in the year, and I can't think what it's called. Yeah, me and Dawson Dollar Chase. I was thinking horse racing. Trying to put every hat on. So I think the pictures are better. Everything just seems to be that little bit more lively.
Look pristine. Everything you see, it just so clean and tidy, and the lights, the brightness of it, and it's just so pristine. And then we've got a lot to learn over here, haven't we?
Was it always like that? Do you remember it always being quite an exciting place to go? Was there always a commentator when you were younger, or has that changed over the years?
No, there's always been commentators. I think some of them now actually commentate from the Sky Racing studios. They don't always go to the track, and I think that was something that was introduced during the COVID period, because obviously people couldn't go to the track, so they had to adapt by doing things over Zoom and Teams and all that kind of stuff, and calling races off the TV. And I think now, as we move into those kind of flexible working arrangements that nearly most people are on now, it's given the opportunity for us to have, commentators call every race regardless of whether they're at the track or not, which I think is really good, because you would rather them call it off the TV than not be at the track at all and just, we have silence. But obviously, like I said before, track safeties, track standards has improved out of sight, kennel standards, all of that kind of stuff. And, from a GBTA perspective, being on the board, we're always looking for green opportunities and, trying to get as much funding as we can to upgrade our tracks and track standards and all that kind of thing. And I don't know if you guys have seen any footage of the queue that's just opened up in Queensland. I think they've roughly spent about 90 million odd on that, and it's just like a whole little greyhound racing city. Like, it just looks it looks amazing.
It does look incredible, because you've got, is it Lakelands and Parklands? They're the two tracks, aren't they? Yeah. So I cover Australian racing for one of my jobs that I do. So I was noticing, when you think something's passed me by, because I know the abbreviations for every single, because I use the Greyhound recorder. So I know the abbreviations for every track, and these new random things were popping up, and I'm thinking, what are they? So I Googled, and then I was like, whoa, okay, that is incredible. Because over here, we've lost a couple of tracks this year. We've lost quite a few over the last few years since COVID. My local track went in 2020, either 2020 or 2021, Bellevue. I know, because I called the last day and didn't have a clue for my job. So nobody knew that it was shutting at the time, because it just never opened the doors again. They kept telling us, oh yeah, it'll open next Tuesday, it'll open next Thursday, and it never opened again. So it's...
Oh my God.
Yeah, awful, because it was always packed as well, like Friday, Saturday nights, was always packed.
A ticket house at the weekend, didn't they? It was heaving, absolutely heaving, Bellevue.
But because it was on a prime bit of real estate, it's gone. It's now a co-op academy. So at least we're teaching kids. That's fine. I don't mind that. If it's more houses, I'm a bit like, come on, build them somewhere else. But
that's
kids.
It's a threat to us as well. Like, we're still in negotiations about Wentworth Park. Obviously it's our New South Wales Metro track because the lease expires, and the government may want it back, and I've got a feeling they want it back for housing purposes, which would be incredibly disappointing because it's a track that has so much history, and our biggest races in New South Wales have been run there, and we've had some amazing dogs run there, and to think that it would just be littered with housing is really sad. I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, fingers crossed, because I mean we're the same. Joe's dad used to work at a place called Coventry, and that's shut. There's quite a lot of them that we used to have. 100 odd? We've got 19.
We've got track in London. There's no track in the capital. Closest one would be Romford, so on the outskirts. We haven't got a track in the northwest. When Perry Bar closes in September, October, albeit they are building the track in Wolverhampton, so 25 minutes up the road, we haven't got a track in the second biggest city in the country, in Birmingham. So yeah, we've either got a track in London or the northwest or Birmingham, which is just an absolute crying shame.
Yeah, but at least you guys are actually building a massive queue. What's it called? The queue.
The queue, yeah. It's called the queue, but don't worry, I get confused with all. I was posting stuff up saying Q2 and people going, no, that's a Q1, and then I'd post Q1, they go, no, that's Q2. So I've got them all wrote down in my book now. So I don't get confused, because honestly, if I put something up wrong, people are straight onto me.
Yeah, I know that feeling, don't you worry. But you know that feeling for sure. Having dived into your podcast and had a look at the different things that you do, you've got, chasing answers, you've got quite a few different kind of series within the podcast. I know you said you worked on your own. Is that something that you've just thought of, or have you spoken to other people that have said, oh, have a think about this, or do you draw your inspiration from other podcasts that you listen to? How do you go about making things new and innovative?
I basically just kind of every now and then I go, look, I probably need to mix it up a little bit. All I'm doing is, which is great, getting people on and having a chat, which I enjoy and which they enjoy. But every now and then I think, oh, okay, let's try and introduce something different. So I haven't had him on for a while, poor bugger, because he's had a bit of an accident, but I used to get my dad on, particularly after he'd had a few beverages on a Sunday night, because he was incredibly entertaining and people just love it. And they still say, where's your dad? Where's your dad? We need your dad on. So once he's better and he's back on the beers, I will get him back on for anyone out there that's wondering. But yeah, the chasing answers one, I guess rather than, just do a typical Q&A with someone, I thought I wanted to come up with some questions really outside the box that would make the person think, and maybe, like, I go back and I try and watch nearly every interview that somebody's already had before I get them on my show, so I can ask them questions that they don't typically get answered or they've possibly never been asked in their life. And that was kind of the whole chasing answers inspiration. And then I thought, well, if I ask those set of questions to different trainers, owners, breeders, etc., it'd give people the opportunity to compare and contrast, maybe pull some stuff from, different ones and incorporate into their own greyhound racing life. And yeah, I've had some good responses on that so far. People are like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. And oh, that was really interesting that trainer said that. I didn't think they'd say that. So yeah, that was kind of the I suppose the inspiration behind that, just to get people thinking outside the box a little bit, because we can get stale with greyhound racing. We can just do get into the same routine and it becomes autonomous, and yeah, just to get them thinking a little bit more outside the square. And yeah, I think it's going well so far.
I think the finance industry in Australia is up in uproar purely because Dimity's doing all this work on a podcast. This is just it just. Even this sounds like a full-time job for you on top of what you do. It's insane. The amount of hours you must put into this is just astronomical. And just going back to your dad, you said that about, when I've had a couple of beers and the truth comes out. We all know that when people have had a beverage. But we had it over here, Dan. When the lads done a Greyhound watch along, so Tom Francis, Ryan, Dave Mitchell done a Greyhound watch along on YouTube. They were kind of doing it during the racing, but then they spent an hour and a half after racing. They're all steaming, right? Absolutely steaming drunk. They had probably 3,000 more views after the racing finished than they did when the racing was on, purely because they're just talking the truth. They're all having a laugh. They're being honest with each other. They're all getting more drunk every 5-10 minutes, which people love to see as well. But people love that honesty as well, Dimity, don't they?
Yep, absolutely. I got the last time I did a live stream with Dad was the $1 Million Chase final a couple of years ago. And like, he's definitely not an alcoholic, but he was hammered that night. And I was just terrified sitting there going, you could probably see the sweat beads on me. I'm going, Dad's going to say something really inappropriate about someone or something. And that's it. My life's basically over. My career's over. And I thought, it's just too risky. So I said, okay, Dad, from now on, we do, because all my podcasts aren't live, I pre-record them. So I said, we do pre-recordings, Dad, just so if there's anything you say that's going to get us incriminated or disqualified or whatever else, I can cut it out. And yeah, because he just, he forgets that we're recording. And just like you said, I forget when I'm talking to people, and then I think, oh my God, I've got to come up with another question. I've just, got lost in this conversation. I'm thinking, oh shit, I've got to ask them something else now, because I don't do any preparation. Like, I just wing it. And I'm probably the most unprofessional podcaster that's probably ever hit 400 episodes, I'd say. Like, I just so I don't know how I've done it, but yeah, no, it's good fun with Dad because he's got so many stories and so much history in the sport. We just have to tone it down on occasion.
And what's Dad's name?
Peter. Yeah.
Catherine, then, haven't we?
Yeah, he loves it. He loves all the attention that he gets when people message him, when people stop him at the track. He absolutely loves it. He thrives on it more than I do.
Superb.
Well, we might have him on the podcast as well then. Doug said.
Get the bee burn ready. Get that bee burn ready.
He's on some medication at the moment, so he's not on the beers. So he probably wouldn't be that much fun. But when he's on the beers, he just flows. Like, everything just flows. He actually brings some really good analysis and insight when he's on the beers. And no offense, I've said to him when we've tried to do it sober, I said, no offense, Dad, but you're bloody hopeless. Like, you give me nothing. So
We're
the opposite is where we just slur. We get fighting. I
was going to say, Joe, maybe you'd be better if you had a couple of beers. Just saying.
I only drink this time of the day. I only drink at this time of the airport. I can't do it any other time. If I'm going on holiday, yeah, not apart from that. No.
I love it. Well, what was my question going to be? That's what I've just realised. I've done exactly what you said. You lose yourself in the conversation. I'm looking at the questions as well, and I've gone, I can't remember anywhere near where I'm up to. That was it. So the Greyhound racing community as a whole, I think over here and in Oz, we've got a few ties anyway, because I think quite a few, I think someone's just gone over there now, and I'm trying to think of the name of the dog that's just gone over there from our side of the water. But we have a few straws from Tommy Shelby. They're not doing as well over here as they are over in Oz, but we're trying with him. But I think one thing we absolutely have in common is the aunties. Now, we've never had an auntie on the podcast because we don't want to give any kind of credence to what they say. But have you felt any pressure? Because I feel like your podcast is a lot bigger than ours. Is the pressure from like politicians maybe, or people in the sport that say you should get the other side on, or have you just decided I'm not doing it anyway and let's just go with actual greyhound racing people that love it?
Politicians, I've only had a few reach out and basically say good things, or I've reached out to a couple of politicians and said, look, would you be keen to come on the podcast? Mark Latham was really good to come on a couple of years ago. I've reached out to some others who said, yeah, I'll get back to you, but they, understandably they're busy and they haven't as yet, so obviously that's something I'll follow up. But the aunties, where do I start? Look, I'm not exaggerating by saying it wouldn't be a normal day without me getting 20 to 25 hateful messages to my page. I block roughly 30 to 40 on a normal day. It can go up to 70, 80, 90, 100 people a day deleting comments. I had to get the police involved a few years ago. It got so bad. Aunties are scary people. Not that I'm threatened or intimidated by them. Probably my biggest fear is for the young participants. I'm a massive advocate for young participants, young females, young males, trying to get them into the sport, get them interested, wanting to become trainers, breeders, etc. And when I see this garbage that gets thrown at me, I think, oh my God, how is a little, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid going to handle this sort of vile abuse? But I really don't know what the answer is. I love having conversations with people who are kind of either on the fence or they're like, oh, this person told me this about greyhound racing, but I don't know whether it's true. Can you enlighten me on what the sport's actually like? Yep, no problem. I'll send them photos of someone's kennel block. I'll send them videos of my own dogs. I'll send them in. They go, oh my God, that's nothing like what the person told me, the kennels are like or the racetrack's like. I'm like, come along to a race and I'll show you. I'll show you the kennel block. You can stand right beside the track, watch the dogs, watch them get hosed down. We give our dogs pies after they race, regardless of where they come, they all get a pie. So, they're the people I like having conversations with, but there's just people who are straight vile, and they will go after any and anyone that supports or shows any interest in a positive way for greyhound racing. And I don't know what the answer is because it seems to be they're getting more and more, I guess, vocal and bigger by the day. And that's one of the reasons too why I started my page, because I was just so sick of all these anti-pages popping up. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to start my own and kind of fight back a little bit and put the real story out there and the real truth, because I've got enough connections to say, hey, can you take a photo of, your kennels or people feeding their dogs ice creams after they run? Can I share that on my page? They're like, yeah, no worries. And people go, oh, this is not what we were told goes on. And I said, exactly.
Yeah, it's these people who pretend to be nice and pretend to care, and then you're having to get police involved with threats. So it's just the most hypocritical thing you could come across, isn't it? And yeah, they can't be told. They don't want to listen. They don't want to learn. They don't want to get involved. They're in their own little world, their own little bubble, and they're not willing to come out of that. So yeah, it's always going to be there. We've always got to tackle them. But it seems to be a little bit quieter over here. We didn't have anyone at the Derby final this year. Now, I didn't see any. I know we were there early, Danny. There might have been, but years gone by, there's been, 10, 15, 20 people there. I can't remember seeing any this year. Toaster.
Is that something you get, protesters kind of outside the stadiums or trying to get in and disrupt racing at all?
Yeah, the $1 Million Chase, which was in October last year, from rough count, there was probably about 30 to 40 of them. And they were, for anyone that knows Wentworth Park, you've got the Wentworth Park entrance, and they were across the other side of the street. And they were just yelling and chanting and booing anyone that walked in. And, God love her, the DJ lady, she just turned her music up so loud that you couldn't hear them because they had megaphones and everything. And she's like, I'm just going to crank up the music. And we couldn't hear them after that. So it was quite good. But, these people I would have rehomed more greyhounds than these people. Like, they don't do anything to try and advocate for rehoming. They just get on there and think that, slandering someone's going to, solve the world's problems. They don't want to engage in any, respectful conversations with you. So, and they tug on people's heartstrings, because you know what it's like. If you're scrolling on social media and you see a story about animal abuse, nothing to do with greyhound racing, just a general, and you go, oh my God, that is shocking, that is upset. And that's what these people do. It's kind of like their psychological tricks that they play, on the general population to try and get them to hate greyhound racing like they do. And that's just a perception, I'm trying to change. And touch wood, I had a man called Matthew Vincent who actually owns some really classy group winning dogs. He used to be an anti. He went and visited someone's kennel, saw the real side of greyhound racing. Now he owns and breeds greyhounds, and he owns some champion greyhounds. So if that's not the ultimate, good guy story, it's and like that all from going and visiting someone's kennels. He's like, oh, this is not what they told me goes on. And it was one of the best podcasts I've ever done. I loved it.
We had it. Kelly Winderbank was an auntie. Now she's with Jason Bloomfield, trainer. So she's assistant trainer now to Jason Bloomfield and their partners, of course. So yeah, she was an auntie, Kelly, and it's them ones where we see it on Twitter a lot. Kevin Hutton's always saying, "My door's always open, my kennel's always open. Come and have a look. Come and see. Come and spend the day here." And then they just block him. Don't want to get conversations.
Exactly. They don't want to see the truth. That's what they're afraid of. And I have got no doubt that I am in their conversations on a daily basis, because I've had my pages reported that many times and shut down and reignited and had this sent to me and that sent to me and this threat and that threat. And I'm like, look, you can do whatever you like. It ain't going to stop me. So I think a lot of them have got the message now that they just kind of leave me alone. But, you just get the odd stupidity comments and that, which I just block and delete and move on. But I guess the higher ones up that, are the ones that like to get themselves on TV and promote on social media that they're anti-racing, I don't hear from them because they know I'm not going to stop. So, which is good.
I mean, I think that's when you've made it as well. When you're deleting and blocking 20 odd people a day up to 100, I think that's when you're making waves and you're making a difference, which is always good, because clearly the message is getting out there with the TikTok and everything else that you're doing. So, and you're a one-woman band, which I just find absolutely phenomenal. Now, when it comes, you mentioned younger people earlier on with regards to the aunties, but would you say in the sport over there that you have a wide range of ages, or is it starting to get a little bit older? Are you getting younger people in? How's it looking over there, the landscape?
It's definitely, I think the majority is an aging population, but in saying that, and obviously this is just talking from my experience, like I don't get around interstate obviously as much as I'd like to, but I do see, particularly on social media, a lot of young people popping up, whether they're handling their first winner, they've just trained their first winner, all of that kind of stuff. And I think, okay, so maybe it's not as bad as what I thought it is. And particularly in New South Wales, we've actually lowered the age of young people. I think it's 12 now that they can go to trials and handle the dogs and catch the dogs, etc., for family members. So, which I think is fantastic. And I'm not sure if the other states' ages are that low, but I hope they drop it that low, because, it's like it's hard to keep kids engaged. And if we can get them involved earlier and give them something to look forward to when they go to the track, rather than just standing around, waiting for mum and dad to race and then, they have to go home. I think it's going to encourage them to get involved earlier. And the response has been really good. There's a lot of young people who are getting their license now at 12 and basically starting that progression up to when they can register as a trainer at 18. So, I think there's a lot more work to be done. But we've got a young participants panel, I think they're called. Greyhound Racing New South Wales have established that, of a makeup of different young people. I've just started my own young participants point score competition, just to give out some little prizes and stuff for the kids that, handle a lot of winners or catch a lot of winners, that sort of thing. So all of that kind of stuff I think is only going to help us moving forward. I have to admit, I do watch the horse racing landscape a lot and try and pick some of their ideas, because I think what they do for the young people is fantastic, like their pony races and all of that kind of thing. It gets the young ones engaged, and then potentially that can keep them in the industry for life. So, I'm constantly watching horse racing to get new tips and ideas, but we've got a lot of work to do, but I think, we can only do what we can do. And, from my perspective, I can only do what I can do with the resources that I've got access to. But I think we're moving in the right direction. We just need to try and ramp it up a little bit more.
That was going to be the question, the age of when you can handle a dog. Ours is 16 here, which is wrong. Ireland, you can handle any age. I don't think that's it.
6-year-old walking out of it.
Yeah, just, and especially if you are, like you say, a son or a daughter, a child working in the kennel, you've got to be able to be used to these dogs and be able to handle them, etc. To be able to feel comfortable around them when you are older. We've got it wrong over here where he's 16. That needs to be brought down, And if with Patrick and Jay Brown have got two young girls who are madly involved with the dogs, but they can't go and pick the dog up at the pickup in a race. They handle these dogs every day at home. Like they're with them every single day. They're in the paddock with them, cuddling and whatever else. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do over here in terms of that as well. So I think Ireland and yourselves, obviously, where in that state do that right, but we've got to catch up with that.
Yeah, and
sorry, you say. I was just going to say, when you get to 16, do you care about greyhounds at that point, or do you want to go out and start maybe having a little bit of fun with alcohol, underage, boys, girls, just kind of mates? You've got looking for that independence. You don't necessarily want to go the track with your mum and dad and walk a dog or do whatever. So I think it takes a dedicated person at that age to actually go, I do want to be a greyhound trainer and this is how I set my life out. Whereas if you started at 12, you're slightly more impressionable at 12 anyway. You don't have those you can't just be an independent person most of the time. And I think you've got it spot on. So yeah, I think we need to take some lessons off you in many, many, many ways, to be fair, over here.
Yeah, or just with the number of kids sports that out there, particularly female sports that have just exploded over here for young people. You're right. By 16, you've lost them. Like they're off doing something else. They're not going to go, oh yeah, I'm going to go. And some of the really dedicated ones whose families are basically ingrained in the industry will still do it. But if you're kind of getting the fence sitters who have hung around at the track for a few years and they're like, well, there's nothing for me to do here because I can't catch or handle or anything. I just have to sit here and watch. By 16, they're off doing something else.
A question I did have is with regards to, the day-to-day kind of graded racing, as it were, over here. Do you see quite a lot of people at tracks, or is it more they just turn up for the big nights? Because I know that we have a slight issue. We used to. We've got a lot of tracks now that are starting to promote their midweek racing and things like that are getting people through the door. Are you seeing an uptick in people going to racing, or because it's more accessible on the TV, are you seeing more people kind of sitting at home and betting there? What's the feeling?
I'd love to say that our tracks are packed all the time, but it's just not the case. Our big race nights, like Easter egg night this year, which is at Wentworth Park, it's one of the better crowds I've seen in a long time, which was great. $1 Million Chase night always gets a big crowd. And while I haven't been as yet, the Phoenix, I don't know if you guys have heard of that. That's a slot race that's in Victoria. Apparently it gets a massive crowd and, they sellouts and all the rest of it. But just your day-to-day racing, not really. Unless somebody's got a function or something booked, you're just getting the owners and trainers that turn up because, like you said, people can watch on their phone. And in the middle of winter, who wants to go? Who wants to go and, stand out in the freezing cold to watch a race that you can watch on your phone? I think if phones and all these bookmakers and online bookmakers weren't around, you would obviously have crowds at the track. But when races are so accessible now, and I guess like you said, with Australia, with, all the different vision that's available and the head-on angles and all of this kind of stuff with replays that they've got now, people just go, why would I bother? And cost of living too, I think, has played a massive part as well in the downgrade of our crowds.
What about just your general Friday and Saturday nights? So ours are getting better now, and as Danny said, tracks doing a lot more over the weekends to get people in. Saturday night's the biggest night in the UK for racing. It's gone from being like the second or third best spectated sport in the country to probably about 8th, 9th, 10th now, if we're being honest. So what about just your standard like weekend nights? Would they be busier?
No, unfortunately not. Wentworth Park. It's really no different. Like I said, unless somebody's got a function booked or there's a party or something going on trackside, unfortunately, even for our big race nights, trying to get crowds there, you guys need to give us some tips badly because I don't know what the answer is. Like I, promote my little tush off on social media, trying to get people to the track and, our events people trying to get crowds to the track. But for some reason, it just doesn't happen. And yeah, I really don't know what the answer is. I'm not sure whether we need to get more stuff for kids, to keep them entertained. Like, we offer free entry as well, so I really don't know what the answer is. We're trying to explore some different strategies, and I'm sure Grand Race New South Wales and, other tracks that struggle with crowds too are trying to do the same thing. But yeah, you guys are like the kings of that. Like, I see your videos and I go, oh my God, when would we ever see that in Australia? Like, it's just insane the crowds you get.
Shelbourne Park on a Saturday.
I know
It's
Shelbourne Park.
unbelievable.
It's mad. It really is. But I mean, Shelbourne Park is a different breed. It's a different beast completely. Toaster is going to be our Shelbourne. I think it is anyway with regards to our English Greyhound Derby. So we've got Toaster bringing Saturday nights back. It is the Derby venue. We can host a load of people. There's a big restaurant. We've got. I think that's the main thing for us. The restaurant seems to be quite a big draw for people because you get a 3-course meal that's reasonably priced. You get the entry, you get the race card. You also get the person coming over to you on the tote to place a bet. So you could just sit there and do nothing and just watch the racing.
Is it a culture thing, Dan? People here, they love a beer, they love a bet, they love fast action. You get in a race every 15 minutes. It's only on for 30 seconds, 40 odd seconds if it's a 6-pen race. People love a bet and people love a drink, don't they? So is it a culture thing, Dimity and Down Under? Would it be different there? Or look, we all love a drink, don't we? We all love a little.
Yeah, and like, Australians love their sport and racing, so I honestly just can't put my finger on it. Like Denny just said about the restaurant, like at Wentworth Park, we've got a beautiful new sports bar upstairs with, great food and screens everywhere to watch live sport. There's a tote up there. There's one of those phone charging stations, pool table, like there's everything there. We just, for some reason, cannot attract people. And I honestly just, I don't get it. I really don't get why there's not the attraction there, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's probably the biggest bugbear that I've got, that our crowds are so bad.
It's all on a regular kind of Tuesday, Wednesday night, to be fair. It is just the Fridays and Saturdays that seem to be gearing up. Now I'm going to switch tacks here because we need to speak about rehoming. Because over here, we have a bit of an issue with the rehoming side of things, purely because of COVID, when everyone was getting dogs and then they went, oh, actually, now I'm back full time. I can't really look after a dog. So we've seen a bit of a decline. We've also seen our rescue centres for other dogs breeds are full to capacity because people can't look after their dogs anymore. So that means when we're trying to rehome greyhounds, because they're not necessarily like a sexy breed to have and you don't have them from puppies, we're finding it a little bit tricky. What's it like over your neck of the woods?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest issue our industry has, and I'm probably not exaggerating by saying that every state's got the same issue. Just, I suppose, the whole process of if you're going through, I guess, the state body for adopting, going through the whole process of getting them assessed, getting them passed, all of that kind of thing, it's a bit of a roadblock for people, because people will say, we've had dogs do it. They're perfect at home, everything's great, and then they take them for the assessment and the dog freaks out and they don't pass the assessment and GAP says, sorry, we can't take them, and you have to take them back home. So that's a roadblock for a lot of people. A lot of people have just resorted now to rehoming them privately themselves, and I've seen people have great success with that. From a New South Wales perspective, our greyhound adoption days that they kind of go around to different locations and take, a bunch of dogs to adopt, I've seen them be very successful, and I think Victoria have had a lot of success with that as well. So you can just turn up on the day, fill out a form, or I think you can pre-register in advance, come and meet the dog, see if they might work for your family, and then basically that's it. You adopt them and take them home. So I think that's working really well for a lot of states. But again, I think it's just that bottleneck effect where, yeah, you're right. There's just so many on the waiting list waiting to be rehomed, particularly when they don't pass those assessments and people have to take them back home. They're like, well, what do I do now? Like, I'm trying to find them a home, but they won't pass the assessment. So I think Grain Ranch New South Wales has just got a new, sorry, I can't remember the person's name, but they've just got like a new chief welfare adoption person, and apparently they've got a lot of great ideas. So hopefully we can see them implemented. But yeah, it is an Australia issue as well. Yep, absolutely.
Always nice to know we're not alone.
No, definitely not. No, that's something we've got very in common, unfortunately. And I don't know about you guys, but the perception a lot of people still out there is, oh, they're scary because they wear muzzles, and um, you know, are they going to attack everything? Are they going to want a lot of exercise? Because I am not in a position to do that. And I've had a couple of people on my podcast who are from, adoption agencies or kind of rehoming specialists to talk about the breed and what they're like post racing, and in particular try to encourage trainers to get them ready for retirement, because you can't expect a racing dog to walk off the track, be retired, and then a week later walk into somebody's home and automatically be the perfect pet. Yes, you might get lucky, but I'd say 9 times out of 10 that doesn't happen. So trying to get trainers into the habit of, getting them pet ready, I think is a big step that, we need to keep encouraging in Australia for sure.
I think there's a few people over here that are starting to realise that is the best method, from a puppy. So we had a lady called Claire Haddon on a while ago, and she's brilliant. She has loads of puppies. She said the first time she ever sent one through a trap at the schooling track, she went, because she was just putting all this love into these greyhounds. And then the trainer that was there went, yeah, can't really see them as your babies. Well, you can, because they're a pet. They're going to be a pet at the end of the day. As long as all goes to plan, they're going to have their career, and then they're going to have a sofa. So if they are the best prepared that they can be from a very young age, then I think, you're onto a winner. Like you say, all the assessments that you have to go through. It's just unnecessary hoops for me sometimes as well, because you think, like you say, they come off a track, they're so used to that routine. It's like any one of us changing a routine that's completely alien to you and not having a freak out. Like, who wouldn't freak out at that?
Yep. No, definitely. And, that all starts with I assume you guys do it the same over there from the rearing stage. Like, so many people who are rearers now, like we've got people who train our dogs, Chris and Sarah Kedwell, who are rearers as well. And they're fantastic. They're in with the dogs every day, playing with them. They do treat them like pets, which, a lot of people do, and I do as well. Like, they get in there with them, play with them, toys, encourage them. Because if you just leave them for 12, 13, 14 months, pull them out of a paddock and expect them to break in fantastic, it's just not going to happen. Like, those days are gone. You've got to be interactive with them and, get them comfortable, and all of that stuff then will only help them in retirement and get them adopted faster. That's what I say to people. Do all this work now and you get them adopted faster. So it's saving you as well.
Now, let's go on to the superstars of the Australian scene. And one lad in particular I have to talk about, because Fernando Bale, what he did on the track and what he's now producing as well with his progeny is just out of this world. I mean, I read the figures because I'll click on him every now and again. I'm reading the figures of what his progeny are doing, and they are winning everything. The prize money over there is phenomenal anyway. So his progeny are picking up ridiculous amounts of that. And have we seen anything of the like before him? He's just a bit of a freak of nature, I think, isn't he?
Oh, 100%. He's the greatest, well, in my opinion, and I'd say most people would agree with me, he'd have to be the greatest sire of all time. Like, you cannot have those stats with that. What is it now? It has to be, is it 200, over 200 million in prize money his offspring have amassed? Like, we've never seen anything like that before, and we probably won't see anything like that again. And it's not only what his offspring have done, it's what his offspring have done as well at stud and as broodies and on the racetrack. Like, it's just that generation that's flowed, and he's going to be around forever. And when I had the opportunity to interview his owner, Jan Wheeler, I was just freaking out because I was like, oh my God, this lady owns Fernando Bale. And I was sweating and shaking. And I'm like, how am I going to get through this? Like, could you just think he's just a superstar. Like, yeah, words can't describe how amazing he is. And if you guys, are talking about him over there and know about how good he was a phenomenal race dog, but at stud, he's just gone to another level.
He is unbelievable. He's everywhere. He's a bit like our Droopy Sydney over here. Now, Droopy Sydney did nothing on the track. He had 4 runs or something daft like that, and then went off to stud.
Really?
Yeah, he did nothing on the track. Nothing.
Oh my God.
So the fact that he is such a prolific sire himself is quite remarkable. So he's completely the opposite to Fernando Bale. You kind of knew what you were getting, or you'd hope that you know what you're getting with Fernando Bale, sons and daughters. But with Droopy Sydney, it was a bit of an unknown. Now, we lost him last year, I think, but his legacy is going to live on because he's got so many sons and daughters out there that are doing so well. And obviously they'll go to stud. And like you say with Fernando Bale, I mean, it baffles me how many there are, because if I don't see a Fernando Bale sire in one race, I'm like, what?
What's going on? Yeah. Droopy Sydney is actually starting to have a really good presence in Australia. Tom and George Daly and Andrea Daly down in Victoria, they have used Droopy Sydney a lot, and Droopy Sydney actually has some She's a Pearl pups as well. Now, She's a Pearl is probably one of the greatest races that we've ever seen, especially, in the modern era. She's got some Droopy Sydney's pups as well. So, yeah, he's starting to make a big mark in Australia.
Oh, that's good, because I know She's a Pearl. She's phenomenal.
Yep.
Or was.
Yep. Exactly. So, yeah, very exciting. So, yes, put those in the black book now. I know I already have, but...
Can we have them back over here, then? Can we have them back over here?
Not sure Andy will let you have any, but hey, no.
That's an interesting question as well, though. Faster greyhounds, Australians or Irish? British?
Oh, I get asked this all the time. How can you compare though when the lure is different? I don't know. Like, yeah. Look, I'm gonna just say the world's most boring answer and say that they're all fast. I'm going to sit on the fence.
Diamond. We've had a lot of people. I know Bocco's Diamond got beat in our final, but a lot of people, the fastest dog on the planet. Some statement.
Yeah, and you know what? There's always some heated arguments on my page that I just sit back and watch, and on TikTok as well, going, oh, our greyhounds over here would smash the Australian ones, and then someone from Australia said, well, come and bring them over here, and they go, no, we'll come over there, and I just sit back and go, oh, guys, just, yeah.
The big names over there, you've got Fernando Bale, we've touched on. Tommy Shelby, he's kind of transcended everything, because I think the name, for me, it was the name. I was at William Hill doing my job, and I thought, just watched Peaky Blinders, I'll back this lad. So I backed him, and he won just as easy as that. And then I thought, oh, actually, that was pretty impressive. So I keep an eye on him. And then I've kept an eye on him. And oh my God, he just won everything. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I mean, he's got a memorable name as well. And he's now starting to, well, we've got a couple of straws over here. Like I said, they're not doing particularly well at the moment, but I think he's going to make his impact as a sire. Then you've got Wow, She's Fast, who, oh, what a bitch she was. I remember seeing was it like a little advert or something? And she came into the offices and someone was saying, oh, we need another Wow, She's Fast. And they're like, yeah. What? I'm here. So that made me giggle, because I was like, that is brilliant, because she is just like, I'm still here, guys. I'm still going to race and I'm going to win, whatever you put in front of me. And, I think I don't know if it's the same over there, whether you guys get captured by our greyhounds as to what we do over here. Because I know, because I work in it as well, maybe it's the same for you, because you work in it, that you may be looking over here in the UK. But do you feel like people know about UK greyhounds at all in Oz, or not?
Honestly, no, and I think a lot of it has to do with just the time difference. And I know it's like it with WA. So, for example, especially during daylight saving, WA races can be 3 hours behind the eastern states. So their first race usually doesn't kick off for us over here till like 11 p.m. at night, and 99% of Greyhound people are in bed by then, so they're not watching them. So even the poor people in WA don't, I think, get the attention or I suppose the exposure that they deserve. Like Tommy Shelby was from WA, and I still think he didn't get enough exposure. Like he should have just been, plastered everywhere. But because he was over in WA and the time difference and everything like that, I really think he was underrated throughout his entire career. And, obviously he's not at stud now because he's just killing it over here at stud. But yeah, I just think all those kind of factors just mean things just get a little bit lost. People kind of just focus on, the eastern states and that kind of thing, and they just, races that they're not watching on a regular basis, unless it's a big race in Perth or, it's the English or Irish Derby or something like that. I think people just get a bit lost with them unless they start to make it at stud. Like Droopy Sydney, a lot of people are talking about him over here, obviously because he's got the she's a pearl pups, and he's got some pups with the dailies, etc. So once they start to become, I think, prominent in the stud scene over here, then people start having the conversation more about, oh, okay, well, what other straws can we get sent over here from Irish and English dogs? Because we want to. We want a good dog over here. So yeah, that's kind of the conversations I have. That's how they kind of go. But I posted a video a couple of days ago. It was a rehash video. Excuse me if I'm saying the name wrong. Is it Skurlog Champ? Skurlog Champ? Yeah, someone sent that to me 12 months ago because I was posting all the Palawa King videos, and they're like, this is the English version of Palawa King. You've got to post something about this dog. And I didn't realize how old the replays were, but I dug it up. I tried to make the best of, the pixelation, etc. And people just went mental, especially on TikTok. All these people going, yes, best stayer ever, love this dog, and the converse. I think there's still people commenting on the video now, like people just went ballistic over it.
There was two. There was Ballyregan Bob and Skirlo Champ. So Ballyregan Bob was just an ultra professional, would pop out lead, and that would be that. Whereas Skirlo Champ, people used to travel hours on end to watch him run. Now, I've never known a greyhound who is 15 lengths behind after one lap, and the whole track erupts when he starts making his move. When he starts making his move, like, look, this is way before our time, but I watched video after video Skirlo Champ, and he was just a freak of nature.
Yep.
About whatever went on in his mind, you don't know, because for one lap he switched off, and the whole place would erupt, and he was just an absolute freak. So I'm glad he's over there and people have seen that, because he was a freak of nature, weren't he?
Yeah, a couple of times he's, people have obviously seen the videos. I think the guys that do the media down in Victoria, they mentioned him on one of their shows. They're like, oh, Dimity posted this dog called Skirlo Champ. Have you seen him? Like, my God.
That's how good it's been talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
How big is our racing over there, Dimsy? UK and Irish racing. How big would it be over there? Is it well watched?
From what I know, people do like to keep an eye on it. Particularly, I think people are so fascinated by the breeding because we've had so many English and Irish imports. When people are looking for those outcrosses come to Australia, not the dog, the straws come to Australia and be so successful. So people like to keep a really close eye, particularly the breeding gurus like people like David Brash, who I've had the opportunity to interview a few times. They really like to keep a close eye on, particularly the dogs that do really well in the English and Irish Derby series, then possibly go off to stud, and they go, okay, well, can we use them? Like, would our brood bitch be suitable to use them? But then when the big races roll around, people go mad on social media because obviously I will share a lot of the stuff, and the first point I get is, oh, look at the crowds. Why don't we get crowds like that here? So, yeah, no, particularly when the big carnivals and the features roll around, it is very popular amongst people here in Australia. Definitely.
It's heartening to hear as well with the crowd side of things, because we're all forever banging on this podcast about promotion, get people through the door. Come on, we need crowds, we need crowds, we need crowds. So it's quite heartening to think that because we try and kind of model ourselves on you guys a lot with it regards to cameras and all that and the commentaries and things, I think it's quite heartening that we've got something that you're slightly envious of, because I think we can learn from each other. I just don't think that our governing bodies necessarily talk to each other as much as they probably should, because we're the two biggest and Ireland as well, but with three big greyhound communities, and I just don't think there's that kind of cross-pollination, as it were, with regards to ideas and what have you. So I think there definitely needs to be more of that.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, look, everybody says to me, have you seen the crowds overseas? Have you seen their crowds? How can we get crowds like that here? People tag me in the videos and go, look at all these people. How did they get so many people? Like, honestly, a day wouldn't go by where I'm not getting tagged or mentioned or sent a video of your crowds going, look at these crowds. Why aren't our crowds like this? So we are so envious of you in that aspect. It's not funny, like super jelly.
One thing right.
One to you guys.
We'll have to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so, as much as I am absolutely loving this conversation. But what are your plans? So obviously you've got to episode 400 now. Are you just going to continue this until people go, for God's sake, no more? Or what are your plans for the future with regards to the Greyhound Girl?
Yeah, look, I really don't think I've got any capacity to take any more on. I'm only getting probably 5 hours of sleep a night. So if I could just, anyway. Look, people say that to me all the time. They're like, so what are you going to do next? What are you going to start up next? This. And I said, look, I'm really happy just to keep doing what I'm doing. Like I've introduced, like we talked about before, those couple of new little podcasts, I suppose, mini series that I've introduced. Like I'd love to do some more video YouTube stuff, but again, I'm just so time poor. It's not funny. But look, I'm really happy with the way things are going. It's got to a place where I never ever expected it to get to. So I'm just flat out with keeping up with what I'm doing at the moment. But look, I'm always open to ideas. People reach out and say, hey, have you looked into this? You should try this. Anything for the betterment of greyhound racing, whether it's Australia or overseas, I'm going to do it. So I'm always open to ideas. I'd love to maybe get an app one day. I've got a website now, which is, maybe don't promote the link because it's not that great, but I'm working on it, but I'm slowly introducing a few new little things. But I'd love to get to the track more, and I've got some ideas. I'd love to get a GoPro on myself, and while I'm handling a dog and all of that kind of stuff. Like I've got big dreams, but whether the stewards and the authorities let me do it is another story. But you can only ask the question. But anything for that inside behind the scenes content that gets people talking and people saying, oh, look how awesome greyhound racing is. That's why I do it, because I just want people to see how much joy it's brought me and so many other people. I want people to experience that as well.
Incredible. What you have done from day dot with your little, because I have that feeling as well. You start it and think, who's actually going to listen? And then we get to this point. We've just reached 100 with this episode. You're obviously a lot further on than us, but I think people are crying out for positive greyhound news. That's certainly what we thought when we first started the podcast, myself and Joe Andrews. We were like, we're not going to have a negative side to this podcast at the moment, because there's so much negativity out there anyway with the antis and their big campaigns. We were just a little 2-man band. He was getting the guests on doing the questions, and I was editing the thing for 6-7 hours or whatever it felt like at the time. It felt like a lifetime when I was editing at the time. And I just said, let's just keep it positive. Yes, of course, there's negatives. There's negatives in any sport. We're never going to be perfect. But if we keep it lighthearted and positive on the whole, I think then that just generates a feel good within the community. It's a feel good for people listening that are new to the sport. And I just think we need that little bit more. Obviously, we get into the nitty gritty now and again, but I do think your podcast, very positive. Ours is the same. And clearly, yours is making waves over in Australia. So much so, you've made it on to Gone to the Dog. So well done.
How good. As soon as I saw your channels and everything pop up, I thought, oh my God, how cool are these guys? And then when you messaged me, I think I literally wrote back in 2 seconds and like, yes, I want to be on the show. Only because I'm on my phone 24/7. Like, that's just a given with me. My dad thinks it's glued to my hand, which it's not, Dad, because I've got it in a little holder thing at the moment. So I do let go of it sometimes, but not very often.
You've got to have it in your hand, especially when you are doing what you're doing as well with the whole social media side. Because I think if you do let certain things pass you by, then people just not forget about you, but it's like you're not there, you're not in front and center. So therefore, they can just scroll past other things and maybe something else catches their eye. So you've got to always have that little hook, that little funny TikTok video, apparently, or whatever you're putting up there to just keep people engaged, because that's the biggest thing, isn't it? The engagement of the community.
Oh, 100%. Like, if I go a day without posting something, I feel so bad, or I just feel sick to my stomach because I'm like, oh my God, I'm irrelevant. Like, I haven't posted for one day. And honestly, I've got a list like this long of stuff I've got to post, because people will send me stuff or I'll see something and I'll note it down. But again, it's about prioritizing for me and shuffling things around and getting stuff done, because I work full time, I study part time, I've got a couple of other little side jobs on the thing, plus this on top of it. So, when people say, oh, it's your full time thing, I'm like, unfortunately, it's not. So, people are really great. They just bear with me because I'm like, they go, oh, I just got my first winner. I'm like, that's great. I'll add it to my list.
So, your full time finance, what are you studying?
Accounting. Yeah.
So you have to do something in Greyhounds to keep you sane then, if you're going to be an accountant as well.
And yeah, like that's what I mean. I think people think I just do it full time. Well, the aunties certainly think I do it full time and that I have no job. And I said, no, I don't. I have lots of other jobs, but yeah, no, it's but you know what? I like it because it's a good balance for me. I have my finance stuff by day, Greyhound stuff by night, and I think if I just did Greyhounds 24/7, I would burn out, because Greyhounds are my outlet from all the other things in my life, and then finance, my study, and that is my outlet from Greyhound racing, because you do need a bit of a break every now and then. You can't just focus on it 24/7 as much as I'd like to do it. I think it's working well for me, and it's a really good balance. And there's so many people out there who juggle full-time work, part-time work with training Greyhounds, and they say, look, we love it because both of them balance each other out and they give us a break from one or the other. So, it's working at the moment. We'll see how the body holds up. In 5 years' time, I might be talking to you in a nursing home or something.
Definitely not. Definitely not, because the Greyhounds are going to keep you going anyway. So
That's
right. Yeah. I mean, Jo, you know how that balance is as well, don't you? Because obviously you do football side of things.
Yeah, semi-pro. So it is a full-time job, and it shouldn't be. My missus hates me for it. Out most nights, football games and training, whatever else. But yeah, and I found that, Danny, when we were doing the derby, I wanted the football back as that release from that, because it was on top of us, weren't it? It was hectic all the time, the writing, the tipping, the show. We were there early as well. So doing all that, I needed my football as my release then. So it's trying to balance life, which we're trying to get better at. We've had a little lesson, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago with that. So
yeah, I mean, I'm terrible at it. I literally, because I'm freelance as well, so I just work 24/7, it feels like. Albeit I do have weekends off. They're never off because all our big racing's at the weekend. So I've constantly kind of going, I'm in a restaurant, just going to check. Sorry, what? So it's always on. Thankfully, the other half's actually got into Greyhound racing was talking to me about Wiki Ned the other day, who is one of our greyhounds that's big over here, that won 4 category ones last year. And the first greyhound meeting that I took him to, he won on that day. So he was like, "Oh yeah, Wiki Ned's." Like, yeah, to be fair, well played. So I now have to watch Manchester United because, the balance.
Oh, look, if I'm out for tea with girlfriends or something like that, I know this is awful to say, and I'm 99% sure none of them will be watching this. But Crohn's disease means you go to the bathroom a lot. So I'll be like, "Oh, girls, my stomach's playing up. I just got to go to the bathroom." And the tab's there, so I just make a little beeline for the tab on the way. They go, "Oh, you're not feeling well." I said, "No." So I think I've got to go to the toilet again. My mum looking, I'm going, "That roast is coming on. Just got to go now." I'm the worst friend, but they know what I'm like, so they just have to deal with it.
They're not clocked on board now yet. Are they not? Are they still? Gosh, she's in a bad way. She is. They're not.
You feeling all right, girls? I'm like, and I'm thinking, okay, this group one's on at 9:08. I'm going to start feeling off about 7 past, so it gives me a minute to get to the staff.
I absolutely love it.
Isn't it? No wonder I'm single. Honestly, it's no surprise.
Yes. No, joking.
Oh God.
I'm loving the cats, by the way, because I keep seeing them wandering about on the back of your sofa. So I've seen them a couple of times.
I'm surprised one hasn't jumped on me as yet, because normally when I do videos or if I'm doing a Teams meeting for work, they're just in my face. So I said to them, "Please, for mum, can you just behave for an hour? Just please, then you can go feral."
They have behaved. They've been very good. So
They
better
have.
behaved than us 3 anyway. So that's always good. Now, Dimity, it has been an absolute pleasure. You are a breath of fresh air to greyhound racing, obviously over in Australia. And I know that people will enjoy listening to you over here as well, because the insight that you've got from Australia is just fantastic. And if you haven't listened to the podcast and you haven't subscribed to the Greyhound Girl, I urge you to do so. I will be dropping the link in the show notes, because I have subscribed. In fact, I've been a subscriber for a while, but I have subscribed. Joe, you better do it after the show. And sorry, you did it before the show. Apologies. Just everything you're doing, with all of your roles within greyhound racing. Hats off to you, and thank you for what you're doing.
No worries at all. And thank you to you guys as well. Like I said, when I first saw you pop up, I'm like, "Who are these guys?" And then I started watching and following all your stuff, and I'm like, "This is awesome. We need this out here." And obviously, if I didn't work and had a bit of a budget, I would I'd do something like what you guys do out here. But we need more of it. Like I say to people, if you're thinking of doing it, just do it. Like, I hesitated so many times. I've gone to hit the delete button on my socials that many times, and thank God I haven't, because I would have regretted it. But yeah, like, you guys just went out on a whim and started it just like I did, and look where we are. So yeah, just do it. It's good fun.
Onto the dogs goes down, and it's got a ring to it.
100%. I love it.
Well, thank you very much. And hopefully, I know you're probably going to bed now, because I don't even know what time it is these days over in Oz. I know we got our time zones mixed up slightly.
I think Richmond will just be kicking off soon. It's only about probably 7 o'clock or something, 7 p.m. at night. Yeah, so it's Friday night party time now over here. So Wimbledon's on, the racing's on. It's good times.
Perfect. Well, I'll let you go and enjoy it all, and we will be sure to speak to you soon, because it's been fantastic. Thanks, Dimity.
No, lovely. Thank you guys so much, and for your support as well. Really appreciate it.